Hi everyone. This is my Blood Death Knight guide for version 9.0.2 of Shadowlands, and we're going to go over a quick little rundown of the abilities of a Death Knight, the secondary stats of a Death Knight, the two playstyles of a Death Knight, as well as the Covenant choice and races of the Death Knight. These are all my opinion, and I feel a great step for someone just looking at Blood Death Knight. If you already play Blood Death Knight and you're in Heroic or higher, or you're running Mythic Plus and you're running 15s or higher, I don't feel this guide is for you. This is for people that want to understand what's going on with Blood Death Knight and the state that it's in. If you haven't already, please drop a subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It would really help me get this channel going. Let's get started. Anti-magic shells are bread and butter for resisting magic damage. It can help prevent some things like bursting and other problematic affixes within Mythic Plus, as well as just making it easier for healers in Raid and Mythic Plus alike. Anti-magic zone. The name says it all. 20% reduced damage to everyone standing inside of it. A great use for just about anything that's bursty, Raid-wide or Mythic Plus-wide magic damage. Vampiric Blood is a great ability that just increases the amount of HP we have, as well as increase the amount of healing we receive. Rune Tap is a 2-charge great mitigation tool for a quick 1-2. Icebound Fortitude is a great way to break out of some stuns, as well as a flat damage reduction. Lichborn is a great get out of fear free card, as well as a simple 10% leech whenever you need it. I usually like to use it when I blow all my AoEs, pop a quick leech, just get a little bit extra health, just squeeze it in there. Thus, Advance is great for situations like a blowback ability or a fight where there's moments of being sucked in or pulled to object you want to avoid, like Artificer within Castle Nathria. Taunt, Scorpion ability. Get over here. Super Scorpion. Get a bunch of people, one spot. Now note, when you cast it, if you are currently yanking a target to you and you cast it while they're being yanked, it will Gorfian grasp everyone to the location that the mob was at when you started the yank. So Death Grip over. Once it lands, then Gorfian's Grasp. You can also use Gorfian's Grasp on yourself, allies, and just about anything else. So use it wisely. Practice. It takes a lot of practice. Dancing Rude Blade is pretty much another weapon that does the same ability as you do. The damage, it's pretty nice, a nice little burst, but the main thing here is the parry chance. It's a great defensive cooldown. It does say it mimics your abilities, but think of it more as a defensive style of cooldown, in my opinion. Interrupt. Find a friend. Make a friend. Get rid of that friend. Return a different friend. Blood Boil. Use on cooldown for AoE and even single target. It applies your plague, does damage. All around great. Death and K. The Consecrate for DKs pretty much. Targetable AoE, you put it where you want, and when you stand in it, which you should always stand in it, it increases the amount of people or mobs you can hit while in it with Heartstrike. Great runic generation. Bone shields are another resource that we need to manage, like runic power and runes themselves. Using Morrowind, we generate 3 bone shields, which give us armor and haste for each stack we have, up to 10. When we have 5 or higher, we get a now standard ability called Ossuary, which will reduce the runic cost of Death Strike by 5 for each time. We want to use Death Strike on cooldown almost, as it is our bread and butter for how we stay alive. Each attack of it will restore health based on the amount of damage we recently took in the last 5 seconds, with a minimum providing us 10% of our maximum HP. This goes really well and again is our bread and butter because of our mastery, which every time we use Death Strike we get a physical shield absorption for a chunk of the damage, and the higher our mastery, the bigger that shield is. So when you're at full health, you want a Death Strike. When you're about to die, you want a Death Strike. You want to generate runic power and mainly funnel it into Death Strike unless you chose the Bone Storm talent, which can be very useful. We want to just pump Death Strike, Death Strike, Death Strike. I believe the two playstyles of Blood DK are Survive, which is reserved for raiding and high content Mythic Plus, or Tyrannical weeks, where the idea of surviving is more reliant on you being able to Death Strike more frequently for higher amounts than the other playstyle, which is DPS, which I usually like to reserve for weeks like Fortified, where the mobs are the key factor in how I survive. The more damage I do in a AoE style manner is what's going to help me survive those pools of Fortified weeks. Obviously, both styles could be functional in Raid and Mythic Plus at any difficulty if you're able to pull it off. But for me, these are the styles that I feel are the best to explain and best to follow when it comes to weeks like Tyrannical versus Fortified. For survival in Raid, we obviously start with Blood Drinker, which drains health and can be used while moving. So if you're moving from point A to point B, or you're starting the engagement, a simple Blood Drinker opener or transition ability is great for a little bit of health along the way. Hemostasis across the board is going to be used mainly because of the amount it impacts Death Strike. Each additional charge increases the amount that Death Strike does, as well as heals. Relish in Blood or Blood Tap are the choices here. If you're able to manage Blood Tap efficiently, where you can use it and get a rune back, it will probably do you better in the long run. But if you don't want to worry about another ability to click another button to worry about another juggling with your resources, then Relish in Blood is a good option here, just because whenever your Death and Decay proc goes off, you drop it and you get a free heal right there. Will of the Necropolis is a must for when we drop below 30% health, we take reduced damage. There's no other option in my opinion. For surviving Raid, we're going to want to use Tightening Grasp or Wraith Walk. Grip of the Dead can be beneficial, but that's usually in a Mythic Plus style setting, as the Grip of the Dead ability slows those mobs. So Tightening Grasp or Wraith Walk, it's up to you on a use case style. Ferocious, obviously, because Death Strike is bread and butter. If it increases Death Strike and gives us a little bit of a leech afterwards, we're going to want to use it just to get those harder Death Strikes. Bloodworms I usually like to use in a Mythic Plus setting or a AoE style, so that's why I personally don't use it here. It's a great little burst if you drop below 50% and a nice little additive to damage, but again, Voracious is the ability to use. Final row for rating, we're going to want to stick with Red Thirst. Purgatory is great if you're situationally knowing you're going to be dying a lot, but Red Thirst, just that constant pumping of HP and absorption, because it should fall to your healers to keep you up within raid. For Mythic Plus survival, it's pretty much the same, except we have Heartbreaker, just because in Mythic Plus the additional runic power is king. And we have Blood Tap because I do not have Bone Storm or Blood Drinker, so I have the extra button slot open. So I like to take Blood Tap just when I need that runic generation for my runes. Runic power generation, rune generation. We're also going to use Hemostasis, again, Death Strike, just pumping that up. Grip of the Dead for that slow that I was talking about earlier. And everything else is pretty much the same. Moving over to the DPS playstyle, we start off with Heartbreaker, again, dropping that Death and Decay, standing in it, and hitting the mobs will give us that runic power generation that we need. Also within the DPS, sometimes I feel like trying out rapid decomposition just for that blood plague. If I'm doing big pulls, and I know I'm going to be doing big pulls, sometimes I think it might be fun to do this here and there, but usually the go-to again is hemostasis, mainly for that death strike. Relish in Blood is my go-to for this again because Death and Decay, the more things I hit with it, the bone shield charge that I have, if I keep that up, when I drop it from my proc, I will then get more health back. Will Necropolis, again, standard across most DKs. Grip of the Dead, slow for Mythic Plus is great for kiting mechanics. You can obviously use the others too, but I usually always default to Grip of the Dead. Bloodworms for the DPS side, mainly because of the quick burst of 50% and the extra little damage that sneaks in here. Bone Storm, especially when you go the Venthyr route, the ability and the amount of runic generation it produces within a few seconds on a nice sized pool, you'll have a full runic bar able to pop Bone Storm, and you can have those simultaneously go, making a nice little blender effect on the mobs around you. For Blood Death Knights and the two playstyles that I feel we have a simple path of secondaries that we want to follow. Item level, haste, verse, mastery, and crit. For the DPS, I feel that we can forego the item level as long as they're within a few levels of each other and focus on the haste, verse, mastery, and then try to ignore crit. That is simply because haste is how we regenerate our runes. Versatility is obviously more damage dealt and more healing received. Mastery, like I stated before in the ability section, increases the amount of shield we get whenever we death strike. And crit, while it does increase our parry, with rune weapon, I don't really feel we need it. And if we are mass AoEing with DPS, or we are spamming death strike with survival, we are getting that health back in full force. For DPS style playing, I suggest the Super Strain Legendary. The ability applies the other two specs diseases whenever you apply your blood spec disease. The Frost one gives you runic power, which when you use it in an AoE style setting, that runic power is really nice for more death strikes, more bone storms, more anything. The Unholy one bursts whenever they die. So if you have a large group, you blood boil, get all three plagues, get all the runic power. When they die, they explode. It's great fun. It's amazing. For the survive style of playing, I suggest Brindor's Might as the legendary. You can throw it on either the boots or the cape. I personally chose cape because I had decent enough shoes. With Brindor's Might, when you heal for 10% more of your max HP, you're going to get runic power back. Luckily, with the survive build, your death strike is going to do a minimum of 10% 0.5, so it's always going to trigger that runic power return. I'm going to start by saying this. I am not a Mythic World First Raider or a MDI tournament player. And if you're here watching the guide, I love you, but you're probably not one either. So with Covenants, it's all about the flavor and what you enjoy. If you enjoy being an AoE god and having a ton of runic power, then go Venthyr. Their blink ability will allow you to teleport to a small little distance after a small charge and disorient them or provide a little bit of damage. The blood that explodes out of you will help generate runic power that can fuel a bone storm or some more death strikes. If you like being a vampire, go with them. If you want to be an undead bro and slap people around, yank them in with more scorpion grips, using slappy hands and having a little shield that you channel from their corpses, go Maladraxxus. The shield is really nice and the slappy hands can pull in mobs. It can be a little problematic within Mythic Plus if you're playing extra mobs if you need to have tight pathing. Night Fae is a great choice if you like trees. I don't know why you wouldn't play a druid. but in all seriousness, they are a really cool covenant. Their ability replaces our death and decay, and their blue animal-like ability is great for our slow Death Knight bodies. Kyrian is also great if you like blue. They have the rated best single target and raid covenant ability, just punching it out. I have not played Kyrian, but if you're looking for a min-max solution, Kyrian is the best for raiding and only raiding. Maldraxxus and Venthyr are great for Mythic Plus. Night Fae is also really good, but Venthyr tops in the form of Mythic Plus purely for the runic generation that they provide with their main DK class ability. As with the release of Shadowlands, any race is able to be a Death Knight. Some of the key features and takeaways that I feel are worth noting are the humans, which have the break out of stun effects through their racial ability, as well as a general increase to all secondary stats that they receive. Another race of note is the Dark Iron Dwarf for their Fireblood effect, which can remove a lot of the problematic bleeds or other negative debuffs within Mythic Plus and raiding. Along with the Dark Iron Dwarves, the regular dwarves themselves have Stone Form, which can also remove some bleeds and other negative effects from Mythic Plus and raiding. As with most MDI videos and team compositions, a Night Elf with the ability to Shadow Meld is very useful in Mythic Plus scenarios. Not so much in Raid, since being the tank in Raid, you don't want to suddenly lose aggro. Volpera's ability to mitigate a little bit of the damage from the first hit they take can be useful for different pulls that you know will hit you pretty hard the first time. Another race of notice within the Horde is the Blood Elves, which have the ability to dispel enemy units in an AoE type effect. This can be handy in a Mythic Plus scenario, but it's usually not that handy in a raid setting since most of those cannot be dispelled. Both High Mountain and regular Tauren are pretty decent tanks in general. Regular Tauren for their stamina increase and High Mountain for their versatility increase, due to the fact that Blood DKs really rely on versatility as their top priority stat aside from haste. This can be very beneficial for hierarchies and raid in general. Thank you everyone for sticking around. Feel free to check out any of my socials down below. Pop on Twitch, hop in my Discord, ask me a question anytime you want. I'll do my best to get back to you. I really appreciate you all sticking around, and if you haven't already, please drop me a subscribe. It really means a lot and helps me grow my channel. I just want to help as many people as I can and improve the quality of the content I bring. Until next time, suffer well.